Finally, Chris Holman. Okay, so Chris is what you're on is Chris. So can you tell us, and I'll give you 60 seconds. Thank you.
Okay, my idea. Can you hear me? Right? Yeah. Yes, my idea is that all TCs should give a description in no more than 2 sentences of why they work for people with UC. So I'm going to start now. So my minute's going to start. In 1841, Samuel Chu wrote a summary of his work at the retreat over the previous 45 years. They didn't used to retire in those days. And his outcome data showed that of the 469 men and women admitted over that time with a wide range of severe mental disorders, nearly 50% recovered enough to return to the way of life they followed before they became unwell, so they had really good outcomes. And in summarising his clinical approach, Chu said, the primary object in the moral treatment of the insane has been that of treating them, in fine, as much as possible as though they were sane and as responsible beings. This plain, brief statement was made 40 years before psychology began to describe itself as a discipline, and has been mocked by psychologists as being simplistic. Various branches of psychology, when not spending our time attacking one another, have obviously helped us to think about how to understand, how to help one another without struggling to be ourselves. However, psychologists have conspired to convince us that helping people is a complicated and specialised process which requires specific training. In their 60-year history, modern TCs too have often responded by talking about themselves as if their method is mysterious and difficult to understand. I suggest that as people, we are not so complicated that only experts can understand us. It may be difficult to get us to change, but it is not impossible for people like Samuel Chu, or me, or you, with no training in anything we think of as psychology, to help one another.
That's 60 seconds.
Well, I'm going on. In a TC, your skills as a human being are more important than your skills as a professional. We need to use plain and simple explanations of what we do, which will empower people to contribute. We should start with every TC saying in 2 sentences what it does. Something like this. Discovering how to be a happy person who can take an active part in the world is a remarkable creative achievement for anyone, whatever start they have in life. People who suffered traumatic experiences or have not been able to experience safe, secure, loving relationships may find it overwhelmingly difficult. RTC lets each person take a full part in creating a better experience for every member of the community, and through this to recover confidence in their own ability to be someone who can face the world without shame, can love and be loved, and can do something which makes a difference in the world.
Challenges, thoughts, Chris? Is there any more clarification? Because it was very long, wasn't it? Does anyone want it summed up in 20 seconds? Yes. Oh, right, Chris.
Well, what I think I'm trying to say is we need a plain language for TCs, because TCs are about human beings finding themselves and finding one another. And while I think psychology is very helpful, and all the insights that come from psychology are very helpful, they tend to make us think that only specialists, only people who understand the technical language, can help each other. So I think every TC needs to start with a plain language statement of what it's for, and who it's for, and why. And we need to kind of discipline ourselves to talk in plain language instead of technical language.
Yeah.
Oh, that works.
Yeah. It seems because you did it too long, that's why. So we've got 3. 1, 2, and then 3.
I actually really like that, the little example you gave at the end. And I've got 2 points. First of all, can you actually put that on some sort of NHS website for GPs to see? Because as a service user who took many, many years to get access to a TC and has a GP clinic who has never experienced a TC before, I'm often looked at a little bit oddly when I say I'm part of the therapeutic community, and it's not really very widely understood. And for me personally, that really seems to sum up my experience of being part of the community. But my second point is going to contradict myself, where a therapeutic help it would be if when I started in the service I was given that explanation, because My journey so far, in the 5-6 months, I can't count now, how long I've been part of my community, I have shaped my own understanding of the community and what being part of it means to me, and where my goals are and what I'm going to come out with. And my goals at the beginning are completely different to where I am now, and probably be completely different to where I am in 6 months' time. So I don't know, it's a complete personal experience, but I don't know whether in a therapeutic situation, how helpful that would be for me as a service user, but please go back to GPs.
Mine kind of reflects that as well, because I think in our TCs we promote the plain language, that the staff are there to facilitate, but mainly just to think, and it's not that we have the draw full of answers which we're not giving them, or we're trying to hide behind technical language. If anything, I personally as a staff member try and stay away from it. You know, I think if it's just everyday speak, it's much clearer, the lines of communication are much more open. But to reflect on maybe more of a challenge, the mission statement in such a concise way would worry me a little bit, and I would worry what people would think. Especially, would it put them under more pressure? Well, I'm not someone who can be loved or can love. Maybe this isn't a place for me. And I liked what Sam said about that she's shaping it herself, and it's a continuous process. So to have a mission statement for everybody, I think would worry me a little bit. Because we have the sort of structure of it and the ethos of it, but maybe a mission statement is how I read it. I find it a bit dangerous.
Yeah, one of them. Kevin, no, no.
I think, to echo what you were saying, I think maybe pulling it out, and instead of having every TC having their own statement, being able to say something like that for TCs as a whole. I was trying to explain to a German friend who's going through therapy, like why democracy is a good value to have in therapy, about the debate this morning, and she turned around to me and said, "That's just like therapy by mob rule, and really scary." And I had no way of explaining to her those two sentences that you gave, and it was just like, but it's not mob rule, but this is how it works, and it's fine, and why do you say something that's so untrue? So I think if we had those as sort of maybe overarching statements, but then each TC was able to not have them as their own, so that people can shape their own experiences. And that making no sense.
No, I think you make a point. I think the reason I'm putting this funny face is I'm trying to think hard. Because this is complicated, isn't it? Both things are true. I think what I've objected to over the years is kind of almost deliberate mystification. An idea that I don't think is necessary in psychoanalysis, but emerged in psychoanalysis, that actually the mystified question is probably the question in the best place. Rubbish. You know, and so I think we need not to be actively mystifying people. If what we're doing is sensible, we should be able to explain roughly what we're doing in a way that an intelligent person can understand. Like part of water adoption, I think hip replacement would really help you if I said, well, just leave it with me, don't worry about what happens. You'll find out. You know, we wouldn't buy that. 50 years ago, we probably would have, actually. And that's one of the differences. You know, that 50 years ago was a different world. We expect to understand that. But I think, absolutely, you know, this process of learning, I mean, if you start not understanding, and by the end of your journey, you've understood something, some sort of understanding. And I think probably if I read that statement at the beginning of the person's contact with PC and halfway through and at the end, they'd have two different responses because they'd be in a different place with their own learning. So it is across. If that was the answer to the problem, if you just read that and got better, well, I'd be really mad.
We have one there. Yeah, just your left.
So this lady had a hand up.
Okay.
Oh.
Here and then there. And this will be the last two, I'm afraid.
I've almost forgotten what I was going to say, but I sort of wanted to join you in the idea that human nature is what comes first in terms of learning to understand ourselves, and that is somewhat removed when we're diagnosed by professionals and then have to deal with some kind of subheading. and then you'll enter a therapeutic community under that subheading, yet we are all individuals. And that in itself is a challenge, but it is our nature to learn from a shared experience, and that is a guaranteed reality once you are part of a therapeutic community. But I do think that clinical language and psychology as a medium understood in the Western world does often stop people developing their own point of view, because they tend to refer to whatever it is they have been told, and we're all there in hope that we're going to understand ourselves within our lifetime. So it is quite a conflicting dialogue, and I do think that language and various systems of thought which have been governed and well presented often are in conflict with our own personal development. And if that's close to anything that I think you were trying to get across, I may have made a point, but I'm not sure now.
It's a really good point. And my version of that, I think, is that any kind of relationship, and the point of the therapeutic helping relationship, it's like a mirror. The point is you look into that mirror and you see yourself. You don't see the therapist. And that when the relationship is working well, at the end of it you know more about yourself. So, but that has to be conducted in a language which belongs to you. Notice it's all my language.
Thank you. Finally, up here.
Yeah, I think for me, what stands out very clearly is it's the learning experience, and I think whatever language people could come to in the end, and make it as understandable as possible for people that aren't part of or don't really have much of an affinity for therapeutic communities for whatever reason. You can apply the language that people can understand, but what needs to happen coupled with it is to experience it yourself, and then to come back and talk about it and share that experience. So I don't think it's just about promoting an understandable language that's universal for everyone. I think it's about coupling that with allowing people to experience a therapeutic community, whether they're requiring of it or not, if that makes sense.
Good. Thank you very much, Chris.